kid activity. Now this is set up in a mini 5E format, so they get to experience and introduce it without having to go into all of the vocab and the previous knowledge first. So our wearable technology, what is it? In simplest terms, it's basically the gyroscope from our phone, right? So if you play Temple Run, gotta get familiar one that we're all familiar with. In order to avoid things, you just rotate your phone. So the same thing's going to be happening here, just in different directions. What can you do with it? You can assign sounds and control them in a lot of different ways, but we're just going to dive into the basics for today. So how does it work? Let's see. I think I hear someone at the door. There's someone there? Oh, it's a music conductor. A couple of things we need to know is the different axes, right? So what is this hand using?
The hand drum.
And what axis is it working on? Y. So we have our y-axis, which is going which direction?
They don't see.
Yeah, it's going down. And then we have this guy. And what is this one connected to?
Oh, Z. They don't see.
Z. Now, this is in accelerometer mode. So it's based on how I move it, whether it's in motion. And then I can start to see if maybe I can make a beat with it. There's a little bit of lag.
Yeah. What? One person drum circle.
Exactly.
Oh.
Crazy. I wonder what we're going to be doing.
Oh!
All right. When we're using our axes, we have our three different axes. We have our X, Y, and Z. Now, I work with middle schoolers, so we have just a nice, simple tool to use. So if you put your hands out like a little water gun, and then you get your middle finger and then you put it halfway out, this is how I teach the X, Y, and Z axis. So if you have your right hand just facing straight out, your X axis is going to be your pointer finger. So that's following along this plane. Then we have our Y axis, which follows along this plane. So that was our motion. And then our Z axis is into the real world, depending on which sensor type we're using. That's either flipping it or rotating it. But either way, we're going into that third dimension. So this would be my X axis, my Y axis, and then my Z axis, whether it's rotating or rotating this way. So we're going to take a couple of seconds. We're going to connect our sensors. I know that we've already had experience, but when we're giving this to our students, this is their first real interaction and engagement in the tool. So we're going to be connecting the sensors, and I just want you to explore one sensor and all three axes. See how to get the best sound out of that different motion, and see if you can connect it to your three axes here. So we're going to take just a couple of minutes, connect your one sensor, and if you could be in the sonic introduction, that's going to help us for our next step. And make sure your sensor at the top matches the sensor at the left. So if your sidebar says sensor 2, your option in the middle should also say sensor 2. All right, so that did what now? Going into our sonic introduction app, we have these two distinct features, right? We have the tap, which was my knocking motion. When you make the motion, it just makes that sound once. But we have our threshold. I have my threshold right outside here because I just have big motions, and it also helps me from staying in my comfort zone. This is my comfort zone, right? And I want to get out of it. So the bigger my movements, the more sound I'm going to get, especially when I move out. I'm forcing myself to move more. And then we have our loop, which continuously plays that conductor that's outside the door. So this is just a little bit more introduction. This is the exact slide from the video because it was so well made. I'm not going to reinvent the wheel. And this is where I chose my music, my sounds. And then our sonic introduction. And will they have access to these slides?
Yeah.
Perfect. So, and I do have a hidden slide that shows the exact setup so you can get the same motions. All right, so here is your challenge. Either in pairs or individually, I definitely recommend pairs, use the Sonic Introduction app to create a human drum kit. Okay? So, we have a couple of expectations, but other than that, it's up to you what you decide to do. Your expectations, your motion should activate the sound. Your drum set sound should also match the motion. Now, that does not mean you are limited to drum set sounds. Get out of that thought process and get into what sounds could relate to the sound that I'm making. So if I want to have a bubble, for example, a bubble drum set with a bunch of different water sounds, maybe my bubble is me making the shape of the bubble, or letting my bubbles go, or blowing the bubble. So think about how your action can relay that sound. Think about how the drum set sounds can make sense together, whether you're telling a story, you're following a theme, maybe it's an ominous or a futuristic vibe, or other similarities that you can identify. And finally, your goal is to use more than one body part. This is still one body part.
Whoa.
Yeah, we gotta get a little creative. You got feet, you got a head, you got a nose, I don't know, figure it out. All right, so I am going to ask you to perform. You're not gonna have to explain in great detail, but we do wanna see what you came up with, okay? So, if you're going to work with a pair, please identify someone to work with. What are your ideas?
Lo-fi loop. Lo-fi loop is what I use most.
Here. Oh, we attached it onto that so it didn't fall off.
So we're both music teachers, and we're like thinking of like the ones on our feet would be like the one that just keeps looping over and over again, and then the top part would be basically just us moving along. Because I was saying earlier that like, especially with little kids, we could just literally just do a bunch of like yoga poses and have like the loops keep playing the entire time and just watching our rest of our body move with it, and then kids would like kind of think that they're also making the sounds with it too.
What's that loop music?
The lo-fi loop.
That sounds really good.
Yeah, right? So they kind of work to get their body moving regardless of the day, but it's just like it's the entire body's moving with it. So
Yeah, thank you.
yeah.
And thank you for using the terminology of loop that helps identify.
These are my robots. But right now they're taking a break to eat pizza. So here's my robot work. Here's my robot sound.
All right, thank you.
Costco pizza.
Yeah.
So that's our first little introduction. So it gives students a chance to play with it, gives them a chance to perform, and gets them thinking outside the box so that they can start to understand complex concepts in a more physical way. So thank you.
Yeah.